Hi boys and girls, welcome back. So happy Friday, and I am back with a part 2 as a follow-up to the video that I made the other day on the secret white men don't want black men to know. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in because we don't really have much time in this video. Unfortunately, I am going to be headed to this event in the city. So, well, I live in the city, but in Midtown. So, I'm going to have to be swift with this one. But I am really excited to do this video for a number of reasons. I feel like I'm glad that you guys are benefiting and gaining something from my talks on these alternative lifestyle situations that you put yourself in, right? I think that it's amazing just to see the interaction that I've gotten in response to this video that I made, and even the other videos that I made previously in my cuckold series. So let's just go ahead and just jump right in. I'm going to read you guys the follow-up email that this person sent. So if you guys haven't seen the other video, perhaps you can start there and watch the other video that I made the other day on the secret that white men don't want black men to know, because this is a follow-up to that video. So the initial video basically was inspired by an email message I received from this white man who felt very betrayed and let down by his ex-wife, who apparently had cheated on him. So he became a cuckold, kind of by default, not by any desire or wish of his own, but I guess this scenario just happened, and he, you know, things can get a little muddy when you have deep feelings for a person, right? So I know that people who are from the outside looking in may say, well, just leave her, right? Just leave her. Why didn't you just leave her? But people tend to stay in relationships that aren't up to standard, aren't up to their standard, because there is an attachment, because there is a bond, because there has been a mutually agreed upon set of terms and commitment that these people are kind of beholden to, right? So when you have that, it's difficult to kind of walk away, especially if you take commitment serious and you take loyalty very serious. So I can only imagine, but as for me, I'm not staying 2 minutes in a relationship, especially in this day and age, that it doesn't serve me well, right? But I have been there, so I am not the one to judge. I'm the last person to judge anyone in their situation. But I think that these scenarios, these experiences are definitely learning lessons that we can all be able to dissect, right? And learn something from. So let's go ahead and jump right in. In response to the video that I made regarding his email, where he was sharing his story and, you know, his experience in becoming a cuckold, he sent me this follow-up email because he is responding to the video that I encourage you guys to go watch if you haven't seen it already. So he says, he sent this actually 5 days ago on September 18th. He says, wow, lots of deep analysis there. Had to listen to that video twice, as it basically took me to task, but also realizing that you are a psychologist, not my advocate. I felt when I initially read that he was throwing some shade, because I'm just like, it seems like maybe perhaps there was a degree of expectation, right? That he expected me to come to bat for him and advocate for him. Granted, I'm an advocate for anyone who stands proudly and embraces who they are, right? And their sexuality, and not being afraid to just walk in that identity, whatever that identity is, right? So I'm definitely an advocate for that. Granted, as I said before, him being a cuckold wasn't by choice, right? So it's not that he wanted this for himself. This is just something that happened. He found himself in this situation, unfortunately. And as she was going out and having her fun with black men, this is a white man, right? His ex-wife was white. She's going out and having her fun with black men. He's still married to her. Like, he's just there. Like being trampled over and walked over like a piece of nothing, essentially, right? If you guys go back and watch my very, very first video on cuckolding in my playlist on YouTube, I have a whole playlist entitled Cuckold. Go find it. My very first video in that playlist, I talk about the psychological underpinnings of cuckoldry. And why is it that men are drawn to this lifestyle or these activities or this kind of dynamic in a relationship, considering it's very atypical? And when I read the comments of people who watch my videos and who are opposed to this lifestyle, they're like, what the fuck? These are men, right, who respond to my videos, and I'm curious to see, like, what drew you in, though? Like, if this isn't your cup of tea, what drew you in? Because they are opposed to cuckoldry, and they're like, how could you? This is disgusting, right? But it can happen. It happens to a lot of people. And I think this is not what they planned, they intended, but this is how they have been programmed and wired by their experiences in life. Like I shared with you guys my story somewhat, not too much in detail, but I talk about like how did I become a baby girl? Like what draws me to being in the whole world, this mystical world of BDSM and being a submissive. Why do I like beatings? Why do I like bondage? Right? I talked about that. There is a psychological underpinning to that primed me for this, essentially, right? As I was developing as a young child growing up. So, as I read this email, I'm going to read you guys his email, right? You can see how, yes, it's unfortunate what he went through, but at the same time, if he is not as self-aware, or he can be self-aware, right? A person can be very fully aware of what's happening inside of them and how their past experiences have come to shape them and prime them going forward. But I was going to say if he's not careful, but then again, he can be very careful. But if maybe he's curious, maybe it's curiosity, maybe it's not ignorance or carelessness, but maybe it's just curiosity and going with the flow, right? Going wherever the wind blows. Sometimes people, we live life and we say, you know what? Yes, society has these expectations, these rules, these guidelines that they impose upon us surrounding how we should show up in the world, right? How we should be, how we should relate to other people. But sometimes we step outside of that realm, and we kind of navigate the world just based on, like, it's like an internal guide. It's like we're pulled in a direction because of our past experiences that have shaped who we are. Like, our experiences shape us, who we are. So I think it's important to take a look within to say, who am I? Like, I'm talking to this person who sent me this email. Yes, I'm responding to his email. But at the same time, for you guys who are watching who can't relate, you can take a pause for a minute and ask yourself, who have I become? Who am I? Based on what happened to me and what I went through, right? Relating to his failed marriage. Because I can't help but imagine that he's primed. He's primed, yo, to fall back in a relationship very much similar to how it played out with his former relationship. He can't help but, or was he that badly hurt and damaged on the inside that he's like, hell no, I'm staying away. So much to the extent that it's difficult for him to fall in love again. Sometimes people develop an aversion towards the opposite sex, right? So he was married to this white woman. Things can be so bad in relationships where you develop an aversion towards that, the whole demographic, right? The whole woman, female species. And you're like, I am not, right? But for him, he says, and I think he's kind of in the exploration phase in responding to what happened and coming to terms with what happened and who he is in relation to what happened. I think he's more exploring, okay, well, what would it be like to step outside my race, to date a black woman, right? And on top of that, beyond just what would it be like, maybe I can flaunt, right? And maybe I can make it known to my ex-wife. Ha-ha. Look what I got. All right, so let's continue because you guys know I can really fluff this up and make this as long as I want. But yeah, I plan to leave around 7 or end this video at least around 7 o'clock. So it's 6:25 now. I think we're doing okay. He goes on to say, after saying that, he had to listen to the video twice, as it basically took me to task, but also realizing that you are a psychologist, not my advocate. Yeah, it's going to make you think. Like, I am going, like, if you're really serious about this, I am going to make you, I think I don't do this on purpose. I think it's just my nature. I just want to respond on a couple of things with more details in case you do a follow-up. It's a crazy situation, but no fantasy. So he's just not fantasizing about this. But listen, sometimes our destiny in life decides for us. I'm thinking about that quote that says something, how does it go? Like, you have to determine the course that you want for your life, because if you don't, other people will decide for you, right? Like, you have to go out and envision what you want for yourself and live in that vision and that reality, because if not, you'll have other people that will hire you to fulfill their vision. What does that say about you? Because I think people who find themselves on the receiving end of disappointment, of mistreatment, of betrayal, how did you end up there? Right? Are you not the kind of person that asserts yourself in the world and in your relationships? Right? So she essentially created this reality because you couldn't take charge. You didn't take charge, essentially. Something went wrong. So she took charge. She created that reality that she wanted to be fully satisfied, sexually satisfied. And you were just some random background actor in her story. You're not the main character. Apparently. He says, I actually met my wife at a gym, and we were married for 7 years. I am 39. Gyms just seem to be the most integrated space that people meet. It's like the one place where you have people of all different races. So I'm going to fast forward because I saw like he attached this picture supposedly of him. And I'm looking at the picture and he doesn't seem like he's a gym buff. He doesn't, I mean, based on the picture, he seems like he's of average size and fit, but he doesn't seem like the typical picture you think of when you think of people who go to the gym, right? Like, no, he doesn't give that air about him. So I'm like, Jim, where? Maybe he's decompensated, right, since the divorce. I don't know. All right, let's keep going. Because this is a kind of lengthy email. It's like the one place, and he's saying this because I question the validity of that statement, right? Because it felt more so like a made-up fictional fantasy story. Because I get a lot of emails from men that somehow their cuckold experience, which really I would say is more so a fantasy, is centered around the location of a gym. Just coincidentally. But he's making it clear that no, this is not fantasy, this is real life, and we met at a gym. He's saying it's like the one place where you have people of all different races and classes mingling together. I don't know about mingling together. If anything, I would more so say that they are going to the gym with a common purpose, I would say, in mind, right? Like everyone is there because they care about their health and well-being. You know, I feel like you don't have to go to the gym to flirt. Like if your intention is to socialize, right? Only, right? Like that's your motivation. It wouldn't be a gym, right? People go to the gym because their first and foremost concern and interest, shall I say, or motivation is like improving their health, you know, their physique, their well-being. Like it's health driven, you know, not driven by their interest in socializing, because you don't, like I said, you don't have to go to a gym to achieve that, to meet that need. There's so many other places you can socialize, right? Or meet potential partners. So I'm not going for that. Based on the way they dress, I think a lot of women go to the gym to meet a man there, or in some cases an affair. Again, no. I mean, I guess he has a point, right? Based on how you dress. Like, you can dress in a way that's more provocative and draw the attention of anyone, right? If you have a nice shape. Shit, even if you don't. Even if you don't have a nice shape, it's just like wearing tight fitted clothing is going to get people's attention, right? And you're wearing clothing where your skin is exposed too. So skin tends to draw more attention. I mean, that's just a scientific fact. Try it. Go outside and see how much attention you get when you have your arms and legs exposed, as opposed to just dressing in regular clothing. But, is there always a but? But it's like, Alright, let's keep going. Lots of women at the gym intentionally wear tight leggings and spandex like they want a spanking after the treadmill. I think he threw that in there because he's trying to tickle my fancy when I said in the previous video that I like spankings. But anyway, not only that, I think he's just trying to feed into the narrative that this story is in fact true and it's still questionable. But anyway, just my privileged white male observation. Yeah, I kind of was thinking along those same lines too. That's what I was trying to think, like what I was about to say next. But like the gym is a place, obviously, for people, I would say, that are more so middle class. People that convene at, like, you go to a gym, yeah, you're going to the workout, and yes, you have the opportunity to meet other people. But it is more so like a middle class luxury. Because first, like, yeah, gyms cost money, right? You really not going to find a gym that is completely free. My ex-wife went to and then another thing, like people who are fucking struggling financially and poor, that's like the last thing on your list, right? Is thinking about trying to get in shape or improve your physique, and no, that's the last thing. You're just trying to get your basic needs met, right? My ex-wife went to a local university gym because she was taking a class there, and at some point met this guy who was not even a personal trainer. He was a former athlete there who now has a job of handing out towels. Excuse me, guys, but I'm a little tipsy. I'm drinking some red South African wine here. Toast. He was a former athlete. So this guy is talking about this bull that his ex-white wife cheated on him with. A former athlete there who now has a job of handing out towels and athletic supplies and apparently flirting with married women. Local university gym. I can see that. White, maybe black too. I saw him one time, and other than being tall as hell, do not see the appeal for her. Well, he's black. Okay, that's the appeal. And we're going to get to some other factors that it's clear were contributing factors to her being unsatiated in that marriage sexually, and that motivated her to step out and to get her needs met. Yeah. I should also say more about our marital issues before this situation. Yo, he wrote a whole essay, okay? I currently have a landscaping snow plow business and often travel to do contract landscape work away from home for extended periods of time, trying to make as much money as possible. I was going to say, okay, if it's just snow plow, that's only seasonal work, but if you're doing landscaping, okay. On one landscaping trip, about 3 years into the marriage, I sustained a pelvic injury. 3 years, and he said they were married for 7, if my memory serves me correctly. Let me scroll back up. Okay, yes, they were married for 7 years, and 3 years into the marriage, he sustained a pelvic injury. You say the white man love black woman pussy. Where are you from? You look like you have a Nigerian name. Okay, so pelvic injury, right? 3 years into the marriage. That required surgery, and since then have dealt with recurring erectile dysfunction problems. That's a big one, y'all. Listen, I'm not a man. I don't have a penis, but I can only imagine, you know, how emasculating that is. And I made a video when I was back living in Los Angeles where I talked about erectile dysfunction and the various causes of it, right? The precipitating factors that can lead to erectile dysfunction, including stress. It could be medication you're taking. It could be diet, a number of things, medical conditions. And I'm thinking about most recently, I have a patient who is taking antipsychotic. All my patients are on antipsychotic medication. But he voiced a concern recently that he can't even get an erection. So he's wanting to be discharged from the hospital. And at the same time, he's refusing to take one of his antipsychotics. Major problem, because the idea essentially for the guys, for anyone, not just men, because my ward I work with men, but any of the patients there, like the idea is that they are compliant with taking their medications, right? And not only while they're at the hospital, but when they're discharged from the hospital, like that's their ticket out. These patients I work with are not there voluntarily, right? They're there at the hospital by court order. So, yeah, that's a hard problem to navigate there. Oh, you're Ghanaian, Nigerian, living in the USA. All right. So he says, I believe this puts stress on the marriage. You believe? You think? You think? We did not have sex at all the last 1.5 years of the marriage, even though I bought her jewelry and cloths all the time. And that is when she started becoming distant and at some point having you kind of, I don't say slow, but that's kind of like a long time to 1.5 years did not have sex. I mean, it's not by any fault of your own, right? But still. So wait. Rewind. 3 years into the marriage, you sustained this pelvic injury where you had to get surgery. You did not have sex at all the last 1.5 years. So y'all were married 7 years. 7 take away 1.5 is 5.5. 5.5 years. Right? Something ain't mathing. If you're saying the last 1.5 years, so that means, okay, 3 years into that. So between year 3 and year 5.5, y'all were having sex. Because you said the last 1.5 years of the marriage, y'all wasn't having sex. You got the surgery, the injury at 3 years into the marriage, right? So that's correct, right? I'm doing my math, right? 3 years. From year 3 to year 5.5, I assume that y'all were having sex. Because you just clearly stated that the last 1.5 years y'all wasn't. Y'all was having sex. 3, that's 2.5 years, even after you sustained the injury. What happened? What went wrong? So, it sounds like she stopped having sex with you. Because, I guess, you tried it. You tried it, after you had got that injury and the surgery. But it wasn't hitting. Something wasn't hitting right. And if anything, I mean, I get that you feel, rightfully so, that you are the victim in this situation here, right? Like, woe is me. But I feel she's a victim too. Like, I kind of feel compassion for both of y'all, right? But I'm thinking about it from a different perspective. Like, I feel some pain for her in that situation because she stayed with you. What made her stay? Do y'all have children together? I don't remember you saying anything about children being involved in this equation, but what made her stay with you? Let's say y'all were having sex, right? Like you said, up until the last 1.5 years of the marriage. And let's say she was thoroughly satisfied, right? The 5.5 years, right, up until those last 1.5 years, that she was thoroughly sexually satisfied, which I doubt it. But, like, think about, like, her frame of mind and her experience as a woman going through that with you. That's a tough situation, right? And I imagine she had to help you out around the house. Like, maybe she had to pick up a little bit more responsibilities. I mean, if y'all living together and you suffer a pelvic injury, I don't know how long it takes for that shit to heal. I do know that from what I was told from one of my colleagues, her husband had to go through hip replacement surgery. And in New York, he's being treated like he got treated at like one of these top-notch hospitals, and the recovery time was only a week for the first. Well, the second one he's going for, they said it's only going to be like a day. Talking about a day recovery. I'm like, damn, that's a fast turnaround. What kind of technology they got over there at that hospital? So I would imagine maybe with, you know, the way technology is now, medicine is now, perhaps, I don't know anything about pelvic surgery, but perhaps is a fast, swift recovery. And with that, you know, but you said you since have dealt with recurring erectile dysfunction problems. Now, that's very broad, right? Recurring, given that, yeah, I would imagine, like, right after the surgery, you know, shit was probably really fucking terrible then. Like, you really had some impotence issues. And that'll not only impact you, but that negatively obviously impact her in the relationship. You know, that intimacy that y'all once had, it was slowly being destroyed by your inability to, I don't know, was it get an erection? Was it maintain erection? Were you having ejaculation problems? He didn't really go into detail about what the dysfunction was in particular. Obviously, there's treatments for that. So apparently you got the surgery for the pelvic injury. Did you get treatment for the erectile dysfunction? Perhaps that could have saved your marriage, because there is treatment for ED. There's obviously therapy for couples who are going through these kind of distressful, life-changing, life-altering situations here. That is not anyone's fault, you know, not to point fingers and say, oh, it's your fault, this person's fault, right? These things happen. Shit, the shoe could have been on the other foot, and it could have been, you know, her who suffered an injury, very debilitating injury. So it just happened to be you. And through that, like, I feel like, yes, through like tough times, we really learn a lot about ourselves and like other people and our relationship and how true that person really is, right? Because people can say, oh, I love you. I love you. Those words really mean nothing these days, you know, because the test of time will determine the truthfulness of those words. But he says, like, even though I bought her jewelry and cloths all the time, he said cloths. What kind of white man are you? What's your ethnic background? You're using cloths? Anyway, all the time, and that is when she started becoming distant and at some point having an affair. I learned about it by starting to monitor her odd gym habits and then read text messages and then confronted her about it. She was defensive about me policing her activity. In the divorce agreement, I was required to pay her $5,750. That's really not that much. As a lump relocation sum, not technically alimony, but basically it is because it was paid in monthly increments. Honestly, to help her relocate, I guess, to get housing, to take care of herself, I guess that would be like a deposit. In New York City, $5,750 would pretty much pay for you to move into an apartment. But I don't know where, I think you said where you guys are located. I think you said the Midwest. Anyway, he said that he paid the monthly sum in increments. Honestly, I later emailed the manager of this black guy at the university gym to report his activity and tried to get his ass fired. Yes, I deserve some small revenge. This was not a consensual cuckold dynamic. Not to get political, but politics was another stress issue in the marriage, as I voted in 2016 for someone she hated. Won't say his name. We know who it is. I mean, who got elected in 2016? Trump. And I funny enough, I remember that 2016 is the year that I started my doctoral program in Los Angeles, and I remember, and I think California is a Democratic state, but either way, I was surrounded by people who identify themselves as Democrat. I don't really like subscribe to like the traditional political parties or anything of that sort, but you know, being surrounded by that in my cohort, the program that I was in, everybody was like on edge, and it was like all frenzy like around that time, you know. And I remember saying like, yo, Trump is gonna win. I just knew something was in, like I knew he was gonna win. I said that out loud, and like people were like looking at me like, how you know? Like I think they were thinking I was endorsing him, which I wasn't. I just knew. Like I think sometimes like if you like when you study behavior and you study psychology, like as it relates to media, you can like the media like I think the media has a hard time at hiding things, right? So maybe they try to like put it like subliminally, you know, in the media advertisements, but no, it's so clear. Like it's just how they position certain things repetitiously. It's clear, right? I mean, it was clear to me. And then when he won, they were like, how the fuck did you know? Come on, do y'all not study psychology? But anyway, trying to get his ass fired. Then he talks about how he voted for Trump in 2016 for someone she hated. I won't say his name, but she would not get over that disagreement. Being a sore loser, apparently. Yo, 2016 seemed like it was just yesterday, but in fact, 2016 was 6 years ago. God damn, where did time go? Finally, some of my style choices got comments from time to time. What? Some of your style choices got comments from time to time. Yes, I like basic. Okay, your clothing style choices got comments time to time. Yes, I like basic cloths like Carhartts. From places like Tractor Supply and Walmart. Okay, just reading that, I got a visual, but you know, I gotta Google this. I gotta see. Oh, okay. Carhartt is a clothing company. Store in New York. Dungarees. What kind of clothing is this? Is this real clothing? Well, the first thing came to my mind was like construction clothing. That's just the first thing came to my mind, but alright. That just seems more like plain John clothing. But anyway. Like Tractor Supply and Walmart. Apparently she did not care for the gray tube socks look, but when a man wears boots every day, it has to be about comfort, not style. So that's alongside like your line of work. You're a landscaper, right? Makes sense that you would wear those kinds of clothing. That's what she attracted though. I mean, like, you didn't just become a landscaper when y'all got together. I would imagine you were that before you met her. That's what she was attracted to. So why all of a sudden I guess she outgrew it. That's the thing, like people change, and you're talking about you're in your 30s, right? You're pretty much the same age as me, right? So y'all met, you was what, in your early 30s? You're 39 now. Y'all met, I would imagine, like early 30s, still relatively young, which leaves a lot of room for development, believe it or not. Women, we are constantly, I think that we are more fluid, like in our development. You know, we're constantly changing and developing, like, and women, we will outgrow a man very quick. It's just like we aspire to just more, and I think men are more stable in their, like, who they are, in their identity, in their development. You know, once they reach like adulthood, it's just like the man you met when he was like 20, he's gonna be that same man like when he's like 50. Whereas a woman, it ain't gonna be the same, right? Like the woman that you met probably, let's say, in her late 20s, that's why it might be be careful getting married, you know, so quick, right? To a woman, let's say she in her late 20s or even early 30s, she might not be that same woman in her late 30s, 40s. You know, she gonna, like, her mind is gonna change. She's gonna blossom into someone different, right? But anyway, sorry I had watched a few of your videos during a beer binge and wrote that email late after 10 p.m. So it was meandering on a few related topics and probably confusing. It wasn't confusing. It wasn't. Just because I may read something you say, like in a critical way, like, doesn't really mean it's confusing. It could be questionable. I hope this fills in those gaps. As far as the size thing, I do not feel insecure about that, with maybe one exception that you will probably find funny. At one point in the marriage, we went to an adult store together during a vacation as I was desperate and trying to spice things up, and told her to pick something out. I purchased flavored condoms hoping to get some attention. Hoping to get some head, hoping to get your dick sucked. She reminded me later at the hotel that she does not give BJs, aka blowjobs. She purchased an oversized vibrator but never used it in my presence. I told her that it was a waste of money because it would be painful. Funny enough, it reminds me of my me and my ex, right? My most recent ex that I was with for 3 years. I met him here in New York City, and we like moved out to LA. Well, I moved out to LA. He kind of followed me out there. He couldn't live without me. But I remember, like, even though we both had like similar sex drives, right? We like both like sex. So when he wanted sex, I almost always wanted sex too, and vice versa. It worked, right? However, like women, thankfully, we have different ways of being stimulated in our genital area. Men, it's like, really, when you think about it, it's like really only one way kind of for a man to be stimulated. And it's like the sucking, right? Whether it's by mouth or, you know, by the vagina, but it's that motion, you know, of jacking a man, right? You know, just encapsulating his penis and going up and down. Whereas with a woman, what I mean is, you know, we have the clitoris and we have our vaginal opening, our vagina, that you can insert things in. So that's like different levels of stimulation there, different types of stimulation. And so for when men and women are together and a man, you know, has intercourse with a woman, yes, we can be satisfied thoroughly from the penetration of just having intercourse, but it doesn't mean that we don't desire other ways of being penetrated or stimulated, shall I say, right? So for me, yeah, like, and then a lot of women, you mentioned vibrator, a lot of women, shit, it's nothing like a clitoral orgasm, okay? It's different, and in fact, like, once a woman experiences an orgasm, period, okay? I was going to add more, but I was like, once a woman experiences an orgasm, which in fact is usually through clitoral stimulation, because a lot of men just don't know nothing about that G-spot and how to reach it vaginally. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this, right? This may be disappointing or shocking news, but most women, we do not orgasm when we have intercourse with a man. We just don't. It's not to say we don't come, because y'all get shit twisted. Coming, right, where she's releasing vaginal fluids, is different. Can happen in isolation, right, from an orgasm. Most women come. Most women do not orgasm in having intercourse, penetration with a man, right? those orgasms come from that clitoral stimulation, usually with a vibrator, putting it right there on the clitoris, letting it do its due, you know, and boom, right? Every time a man ejaculates, he orgasms, essentially. That's not the case for women. So, yeah, my ex, he used to be so disappointed because I would pull out, like after we would have sex, I would pull out the vibrator. And I'm like, okay, yes, I came. Men always ask that question, oh, you come? Did you come? Do not ask a woman that. I feel like that shit is so corny, okay? If you know a woman's body, and if you are experienced, then you will know if she came. You don't ask that question. Did you come? Yeah, they ask that question. Men, like, yeah. And then, you know, he was upset that I pulled out the vibrator to get a different type of stimulation and to orgasm, because yeah, I want an orgasm. A woman can come, but damn, there's nothing like having that orgasm, because it's like that's the pinnacle, right, of sex. That's the peak of it. That's the moment that people are looking for when they have sex, and to get that release. So there's unfinished business if a woman does not orgasm. Now, I talked about this before in another video, how you can make, like, it takes a skilled man. And we're talking about some psychodynamic ways of really titillating a woman and making her feel good. And I point up here because y'all know, like, for me, it's mental. It starts with the mind. And if you can really, like, get to know a woman, men think getting to know a woman is seeing her nipples, seeing her fucking vagina, her ass, and seeing her exposed. No. That's not getting to know a woman. Getting to know a woman is knowing her mind. Knowing what gets her aroused. And knowing how to reach that level of arousal, how to stimulate that level of arousal without even touching her. Like, a lot of men ain't even there. They're not even that sophisticated or patient enough to be able to do that. It takes skill, though. You have men, in BDSM we call them masters. You know, they got that shit down. It's like a science. It's an art, too, to it, right? But, it does take a lot of skill and patience. And maybe you can get to that point, especially as a man who is aging, right, and you experience ED, I would say relatively at an early age, due to this medical condition, you know, that you got surgery for. With that, you can explore other ways. There's so many, I feel like people's perspective, their level of understanding of sexuality is very limited. So, yeah, like you become, like, open up to a whole new world. And I talk about this in my autobiographical BDSM erotica fictional fantasy story that I have posted on my website at my name, DanielleLeash.com. And it's autobiographical, yes, because it's about my life, right, and my experience. My first time experience in the world of BDSM. Okay, I don't know how to stop, because I even get aroused just thinking about it. It's just the ways that, you know, you can be satiated and tickled. Alright. Life is amazing. Life is amazing, and like, the mind is a very amazing thing, you know. I feel like, there's so much more to learn and to study about ourselves. People ask me why I entered the field of psychology, because you get to learn about yourself. You get to learn about behavior as much more than what you see, than what meets the eye, right? To understand the inner workings of what makes us happy. What makes us horny? What makes a woman lubricate? Do you know? It's not fingering, okay? That can. But in understanding like what happens internally in a woman's mind that sends that message through her body to make her lubricate. Can you answer that question? I feel like you should be able to answer that question before you can even lay down and get yourself involved with the woman sexually. Understanding the neurobiological aspects of sex, okay? Before you have sex, then we can talk. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up because I gotta get out of here. She reminded me later at the hotel that she does not give blowjobs. She purchased an oversized vibrator but never use it in my presence. I told her, yeah, she's not gonna use it because you're gonna fuck up her goddamn high. Okay, that's like people that don't smoke, and you are a smoker, right? You smoke marijuana, right? But you around people like, oh, that smell, like, you can't even enjoy the fucking high because you got somebody that don't even believe in it, right? Like you disagree with her use of a vibrator. You don't get it, right? And I think part of you had insecurities, as did my ex. I can smell insecurity a mile away, many, many miles away, in fact. And I knew all of his insecurities. Like, I saw them. I don't think he was as much aware. Maybe he was. That probably made him even more insecure. He was so insecure. That, to me, is a turnoff. So, yeah, when I pulled up my vibrator, like, he would feel incompetent. He would feel inadequate. I'm like, yo, it's not fucking about you. It's about my pleasure. When a man understands that and puts his ass to the side, like put your own insecurity to the side for a minute to be able to put yourself in her shoes and understand. But that comes with maturity, right? That comes with growth. As we age, I mean, supposedly, we mature. Our minds expand. Become more open-minded. We're able to see other perspectives outside of our own, right? As opposed to being driven by the id, the self-serving part of self that can only see and get your own personal needs met. Not thinking about, okay, what is it like for her? Like, what is she feeling right now? What is she thinking? What's motivating her to do that? No one cares, I guess. Hence the reason why relationships, I mean, that could be potentially good relationships, they don't last. They're not strong because there is a weak point in their relationship, and usually it's the person looking in the mirror. Or it's within the person looking in the mirror, shall I say. I told her that it was a waste of money because it would be painful. For the record, I have gone down on her many times as that is literally my favorite thing to do in life. Okay, but you stimulating her with your tongue is different. It's not to say one is better than the other. I guess, though, you can't qualify it, or she can qualify it. But it's a different kind of stimulation. It's just like different types of food and different textures and tastes of food, right? I'm sure you have multiple restaurants that you like to get food from. Doesn't mean that you go to one restaurant, the other restaurant sucks. No, you just like different things. Women like different things. She clearly likes different things to stimulate her, you know. Don't feel like you're taking it personal. That's where your own insecurities. That's why I think it's important that people take a look at themselves, really fully know themselves before they enter into relationships. But if you don't, which most people are, we're still learning who we are, right? Relationships is definitely a prime opportunity for you to discover who you are. It becomes like the catalyst, you know, and you go through different things in relationships that, yeah, if you didn't know who you are, you're going to learn, and you should. The problem, though, that people encounter though they have the opportunity to learn about themselves through relationships, they tend to not learn. They know a lot about the other person, which oftentimes really is not so much about the other person, because they're really projecting themselves onto the other person, right? Prime example, when a person breaks up from a relationship, it didn't work out, you ask them, what happened? Listen to the words that they say, the words they put together. They usually attribute blame for why their relationship did not work to that other person. So if you're doing that, what did you learn about yourself? Absolutely not a goddamn thing. You didn't learn shit about yourself, right? But that's for another video. Yeah, you know, that's also how I gauge, like, because of course I'm single, and I gauge when I'm talking to men on dating sites, right? I gauge your level of insight, your level of wisdom and wit, and self-awareness, just by how they answer that question. And I can tell that these men don't quite know themselves. So that's going to be that's a red flag for me. You got to know who the fuck you are, because when shit goes wrong, you're not going to sit up here and point fingers at me. Take a look within yourself. There's nothing more attractive than a man who can talk openly and transparently about who he is. Not only boast upon his positive attributes, but talk about the mistakes that he's made. That is a very intuitive, smart man. Alright, anyway. He says, I am not really into porn because I do not get physically aroused by it, but since being divorced, occasionally use it as a coping device. Yes, a man does not need to be hard to masturbate. TMI. Okay, you don't have to be fully erect, I would imagine, to masturbate. I mean, you have babies that masturbate, so clearly you don't have to be fully erect or hard to masturbate. Thanks for making sense of this experience. I appreciate your smart analytical insights and hope you encourage more black women to pay closer attention to your men as well. I think that last statement was shade, okay? Which is the reason why I entitled this video, The Secret That White Men Don't Want Black Women to Know, because he pointed to the fact that in his process of healing from that past failed relationship in which his white wife, or ex-wife, shall I say, betrayed him and stepped outside their marriage and was engaging in intercourse with black men. Yeah, he's healing from that. And his approach to healing is to do to his wife what's been done to him, trying to say, ha ha ha, you got a black man, ha ha ha, now I got a black woman, ha ha ha. So that's why I entitled the video this, because someone brought it to my attention in the comment section of my previous video. Actually, you should have entitled the video, The Secret That White Men Don't Want Black Women to know that they're the ones being used pretty much as like a rebound and as an object, essentially, to get revenge on their white female counterparts. So that's it, you guys. I have to wrap this video up because I have to go. But it was nice. Catch you guys later in the next one. Drop your comments below and feel free to share this video.